And therefore, we begin with the Haftarah that we're going to read on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. We begin, as you see through your source sheets, with Tefilat Chana. And what's interesting is that the Haftarah selections, as we know, are not merely historical replacements for the Torah readings, but rather they're instituted in order to serve even as a commentary, sometimes on the Torah readings, for example, the Parshiot HaShavua on a weekly basis, and definitely to evoke and to help us, as we said, clarify the ideas that accompany us at special times of the year. So without further ado, we're going to get started with the Haftarah of the first day of Rosh Hashanah, which we generally call the Haftarah of Tefilat Chana. But what we're going to recognize is that this Haftarah is not just one of the central Torah readings, but actually is going to serve as the basis also for our tefillot, for all the prayers on Rosh Hashanah. So we begin with the first source, which is a very famous Breita, as we see, in the name of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua, the great scholars of the third generation of Tanaim in Yavne, they debate what are the more calendarical dates that are significant to Am Yisrael. Are the dates going to be those in Nisan? For after all, Nisan, as we know, is the commencement of Jewish history, the beginning of a relationship between God and the people of Israel as manifest through the redemption from Egypt. And yet, Rabbi Eliezer is going to explain that the calendar is not just going to be focused on a personal relationship between Hashem and Am Yisrael, but rather the Jewish people exist within a more universal framework. And therefore, the dates of Tishrei, marked with the creation of the world, they're going to be the more significant dates. So whereas Rabbi Yehoshua will explain all the very famous anniversaries, whether it's of Yetziat Mitzrayim, whether it's the births of the Avot, and very interesting dates of Jewish history that occur in Nisan, let's take a look at Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer begins and reminds us, B'Tishrei Nivra Ha'olam, don't forget that the Jewish people, our particular relationship with God, is actually part of a greater universal relationship with the entire world. And therefore, in the month of Tishrei, it's true that there are certain events of Jewish history, but they occur within the broader framework of the universal creation. But at the same time, B'Tishrei noladu avot. Even our subjective history with God through the birth of the patriarchs also begins, not like Rabbi Yehoshua maintains in the month of Nisan, but rather the month of creation, the month of Tishrei. B'Tishrei metu avot. And this, as we know, is based on the nickname for the month of Tishrei, namely Yerach HaEtanim, the month of the strong ones. Chazal argue, who are these strong ones? These are the patriarchs. These are going to be the bastions of our nation. These are literally the pillars of the Jewish people. So they were born and they died in the month of Tishrei, claims Rabbi Eliezer. We have one little problem. For after all, Chazal have already taught us that when the Malachim, when the angels come to reveal to Abraham and Sarah that they are going to have a child, Ka'et Chaya u'lesarah ben, they recognize that exactly a year from now, Sarah is going to have a child. And what time of the year was that? Well, Sarah prepared ugot matzot, so it must have been Pesach time, in which case Yitzchak, Rabbi Eliezer, he was born Pesach. Okay, even Rabbi Eliezer will concede that in fact, but Pesach nolad Yitzchak. But don't worry, Avram and Yaakov, born in Tishrei, even Yitzchak died in Tishrei, and all the more so, B'Rosh Hashanah, Nifgeda, Sarah, Rachel, v'Chana. The three barren women, even Yitzchak's conception, and occurred in the month of Tishrei. So albeit he was born in Nisan, but really it started in Tishrei, which I know you're all thinking, yes, in fact, according to this, Yitzchak was a preemie. But let's continue. B'Rosh Hashanah yatsa Yosef mibeit hasurim. Because on one hand, Rabbi Eliezer can't argue against Rabbi Yehoshua. Everyone knows that the most prominent, the hallmark of Jewish history, the famous date of Yetziat Mitzrayim, that's in the month of Nisan. But, claims Rabbi Eliezer, we actually saw the seeds of redemption in the month of Tishrei whether expressed through the emancipation of Yosef from his state of incarceration, that occurred in the month of Tishrei. And similarly, B'Rosh Hashanah bitla avodah ma'avotenu b'Mitzrayim, we stopped working the harsh labor already through the plagues that began in the month of Tishrei. B'Nisan nigalu, u'v'Tishrei atidin lihigael. Most of us are familiar with Rabbi Yeshua's statement. The initial Geula, the redemption of the Jewish people, took place and ultimately began in the month of Nisan, and therefore Rabbi Yeshua maintains that we're going to continue to see the vicissitudes of the history of Am Yisrael, particularly in the month of Nisan. Rabbi Eliezer argues it may have started in the month of Nisan, but the future Geula, the eschatological redemption, when will that be? That will be Tishrei, which should excite all of us, because I become very disappointed at the end of Nisan when Mashiach has not arrived yet. So we're not supposed to lose hope. It can be this month, in fact. Rabbi Eliezer maintains, B'Tishrei atidin lihigael.